Welcome back, everybody. Derek Sue, your East Oakland advocate. Well, today is Father's Day, and while I do not have any children of my own that I have fathered, I did raise a stepson, and uh, my stepson that I raised, he was an interesting kid. He was Caucasian, but he was different. Um, Not that he was autistic or anything like that. He did have ADHD, and he was on Ritalin for a little while, but there was a lot of things. He had a very uh, violent dad. He had a very loving mother, and um, a total lack of self confidence. And the lack of self confidence was because he was different from his peers of the same age group, as he was quite a bit taller. His mother was very tall. His grandparents on his mother's side were all very tall people. His father, not as tall, but still tall. And so, just to give you an idea, when he was in Alameda High, going to high school for 3 years, and he graduated in the year 2000. He was quite an athlete, also. In fact, he was being looked at by the USOC, United States Olympic Committee, and he was one of the top prospect swimmers for the United States swim team back in 2000 for the Sydney, Australia games. And so uh, there's a whole story on that one, but yeah, it was interesting. And his confidence, he didn't have that kind of confidence when he first started out. In fact, he was a very shy child and not very confident. In fact, I was the one who taught him how to swim because in Oakland High, I participated on the swim team in my junior year at Oakland High School in 1976 to 1977. It was only 1 year that I did. And I swam on the JV. My strong stroke was backstroke. I for that entire season of swimming in competition, I only lost one match. I was very dominant. I was not quite fast enough because there were a lot of strong candidates that year in backstroke on the varsity team. So that's why I didn't make varsity, even though I had some incredible times, and I pretty much went with only one loss through the entire swim season that year, and then I didn't go back to it. But my stepson, we had we were living in Alameda, and he's tall, and a lot of the average kids are about 2, maybe 3 years older than him in terms of maturity, and so that puts him at a disability mentally, because mentally he may be the same size, same height, and similar strength to the bigger kids, but up here he's still 2 to 3 years behind, and he wasn't one of the the kids that were really academic. In fact, he was academically challenged. He was one of those kids that uh, put more priority on having fun and doing other things than his schoolwork. And in fact, he barely made it out of Alameda High. And so, anyway, one of the things that he always had problems with was kids picking on him, bullying him. And I had the same thing growing up here in Oakland, and in his age at the time. He's in junior high school. That's a very challenging age because you're no longer 12 years old. And then when you're his height and you're looking like you're 15, 16, things can be very different in his eyes, because you, that height means that you're taking a 12-year-old and then a 15-year-old will be challenging them. So you can see the differential in just the mental acuity itself. And so anyway, I took it upon myself to start teaching him martial arts, because he was complaining. And then he got beat up at school once, and he was a big kid, and he got beat up, and he his mother kind of went along with it. She wasn't real favorable on this because she was pretty much nonviolent, and um, her her former husband, the my stepson's dad, he was a violent person, and so he ruled through fear, or making people fear him. I was one of those that didn't, and my stepson was terrified of this man, and so when I start teaching my stepson martial arts, I start teaching him some basics, and we even achieved 14 hours of training uh, at the time before his first incident. And his first incident, let me tell you, this is a kid that was almost afraid of a shadow. He was a good loner. He had a lot of friends. He was very friendly, but he was out on his new bike. I just put together a new BMX bike for him. I mean, chrome. I mean, really nice bike. Uh, Nearly $500 investment for this custom piece by piece built bike for him. And he's riding around, and three kids accost him and try to take his bike. And um, they're his size. And so they said, we just want your bike. Just give it to us, and you won't get hurt. And so he gets off his bike. He puts the bike down and said, "Okay, let's go." And that surprised me, because that's telling me that he has a lot of confidence in those 14 hours of training in martial arts that I gave him. And just to let you know, I didn't do a simple lessons. I went well beyond what you would normally be taught in Wing Chun or any other martial arts. My stepson actually had the equivalent of nearly 100 hours of hands-on private training directly from me. And in that case, um, he took on all three. Uh, I found out about it because he came racing back to our home there in Alameda. He's all big-eyed and panicky, and he's trying to explain everything to me. And I said, "What happened?" He said, "I laid out all three. Man, that stuff that you taught me was so cool." Yeah, I mean, he was excited and terrified at the same time. And so, just to make sure, as a good parent and a responsible parent, I told him, "Take me back to where you did uh, the damage, where the fight occurred, and let me see if uh, there's something that may be needed, or some kids may need to be helped. I don't know how seriously that you may have hurt them." And so anyway, we get out there, and everybody's long gone and everything. And so, but it just goes to show, folks, uh, getting some type of mixed martial arts or martial arts training to build confidence in oneself and one's ability is very important. And that's one of the big things that you get off of martial arts training. The training may not be the best, and the fighting style may not be the best, but you need to investigate and look at who these people, who these teachers are, these Sifus and the um, other teachers out there of the different mix of the different martial arts styles out there, because there are a lot of different styles. And the way that I was trained is not the way that any other American martial arts school trains these days, because I train under full contact. And by training full contact, you learn how to actually fight, because you are also having to deal with pain and injuries. And sometimes blood. So the type of training you get these days doesn't have any of that. That was the kind of training that I got, and uh, I tell you, it's very different than um, how people are trained today, and that's why people are saying, "Well, people in mixed martial arts, it doesn't work in the real world," and they're absolutely right. I've seen black belts get absolutely, hammered on the street because while they have some skills and some fighting in for points, they don't have any real street fighting skills. And because street fighting and fighting in the ring are extremely different. There, in a street fight, there are no rules. For points, all sorts of rules. I grew up in the version with no rules. And so that's how I fight and that's how I teach. The style that I teach is a combination of three different disciplines. I have Wing Chun as my foundation. Then I have Muay Thai as um, a very, very aggressive, destructive, close contact or close fighting style. All of my fighting style is uh, inside of a 30-inch circle. Everything I do fits inside of a 30-inch circle because I'm going to come in and crowd you on a fight because I can block pretty much anything you've got. And in a knife fight, I'm deadly. You're not going to beat me. Nobody's beaten me in a knife fight. In fact, I still have some injuries. And so you see some of my block injuries right there. There's an injury, a couple of injuries there, and a double stabbing from a knife fight. So you're not going to beat me. And my stepson, when he went off to Arizona for school, he actually trained with a UFC professional, Chuck Liddell, the Iceman. And I got to meet Chuck Liddell in Phoenix on one of my visits to my stepson out there, and it was very interesting. He's a really cool person, very interesting to talk to. And so anyway, my stepson, he I told Chuck, just tell him, he's no good because he telegraphs everything. I told Chuck that, and Chuck Liddell said, "Boy, you are really knowledgeable about what you know." And I said, "Yeah, because uh, guys your size and bigger are constantly taken down by little guys like me." My stepson at the time was 6'10", so he was my one of my training partners. I call him my training dummy, and it was that's how I got my fighting style and how I got my practice in for uh, working on people and opponents much taller than me because I'm only 5'8", and at my peak I was only 5'10". And a lot of my opponents would be significantly bigger than me. And even in my own contingency group, I had challenges from people that were significantly larger than me. But then once they see my fighting style and how I took people down, and I didn't lose because I don't lose mindset when in my martial arts. And then my final martial arts where a lot of my knife skills and baton and I mean a lot of my weapons skills comes from Filipino mixed martial arts, and also known as Eskrima. And so that's where I was personally trained by a master uh, um, Eskrima person. That was a personal friend of mine. Felix lived just a few blocks away from my home when I lived out in Harbor Bay, and he was a mixed martial arts and specialty Eskrima master. And so that's who I learned from. I learned from some of the best in the industry. It gave me a tremendous amount of confidence all through school. Even it helped me to deal with bullies, and it made my mind sharper uh, it made me more strategic in everything that I did. So I encourage you folks, your families, to look into possibly training it in martial arts or mixed martial arts. I highly recommend if you can find a Wing Chun specialist. That's what I would encourage folks to do. There's not really belts in that. The system of grading is really antiquated, and uh, I just don't like it, man. That's why I really like Wing Chun and Kung Fu, because we don't have belts. We just show what we're capable of doing, and that's our proof. We don't need a belt to tell us, how good we are or how good we aren't, and so we just go and prove it. Thanks for joining me today. Look into Wing Chun, builds confidence and makes you more mentally aware of stuff. And that's just the beginning, because there's a whole lot of stuff, a lot of things that you saw or see on Star Wars, like Obi-Wan Kenobi, mind controlling or becoming invisible to other people. That's a real thing in martial arts. But that's when you get really high up in the practice and the disciplines, because that's where I was a specialist. I actually learned ghosting, where I can literally walk in front of you and you would not see me. I did it constantly in my camp, and all of a sudden people say, "Where the fuck did you come out of from?" And they never saw me come into their peripheral or uh, in their face until I wanted them to see me. So, thanks for joining me today. I'm going to disappear.